माननीय राष्ट्रपति महोदय, आपकी आज्ञा हो तो समारोह प्रारंभ किया जाए।
मैं प्रकाश केशव जावड़ेकर
ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि
मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के
संविधान के प्रति
मैं सत्यनिष्ठा से प्रतिज्ञा करता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा
पहले नाम कहिए,
अपना नाम नहीं,
पहले नाम बोलिए।
सॉरी
that I will faithfully and conscientiously
और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगा।
मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगी।
Hello and welcome to the CNBC TV 18 special. I'm Shereen. Bhan. After months of speculation, there is now clarity. The Modi government has inducted 19 new ministers and decided to drop 5 from the Council of Ministers. With an eye on the upcoming state elections, a lot of the representatives that make it now to the Council of Ministers could perhaps impact the government's electoral performance. There is, of course, a question mark on that. And, of course, this also begs the question whether the ministers that have been dropped on account of performance-related issues. To take us through what this cabinet expansion exercise means, joining us today, Zafar Islam, spokesperson of the BJP, Sanjay Jha, spokesperson of the Congress Party, R. Jagannathan, editor of the Swaraj magazine, and A.K. Bhattacharya of Business Standard. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Mr. Islam, let me start by asking you, the Prime Minister has stated very clearly that this was an expansion exercise, not so much a reshuffle exercise. He's also made it clear that the government's intention with this expansion exercise is to prioritize the government's development agenda, its budget priorities. How should one read the fact that you've decided to drop 5 ministers? Is this on account of performance-related issues, or was this to make space for those who've now been inducted?
Thank you, Shereen. Yes, it was much awaited expansion, ministry expansion, and the only objective with what Honorable Prime Minister had was to the people who have been selected as ministers who can carry forward the developmental agenda of the government. So those who have been picked are the one who have been actually, Prime Minister has faith in them that they can carry forward all the developmental agenda the party and the government has. And they have the right expertise, they have the right experience, and in the process also some of the other issues, softer issues also got addressed, like for instance regional representation, the representation from the minority community, representation from the lower SC/ST representation, and also the women representation also got addressed in the process. But the objective, the Honorable Prime Minister had only one objective, was that people who have been selected are the ones who have the right expertise and experience to carry forward all the developmental agenda which the government has to reach to the
Okay, if I may interrupt you, Mr. Islam, and I'm taking forward the conversation where you left off, would it then be fair to assume, as you pointed out, that the ministers that have been dropped no longer enjoy the confidence and the faith of the Prime Minister, and they have failed to perform and deliver on the government's stated objective?
See, this kind of exercise, anybody who knows the Honorable Prime Minister knows that he is somebody who is a tough taskmaster. He wants people to deliver. Obviously, there could be many other reasons, but the primary reason could be that their performance may not be up to the mark, and that's why they have been dropped. Or there could be some other reason in some cases, but the primary reason could be that the performance of those particular ministers have not been satisfactory to the extent that Prime Minister felt that they should be replaced with some other new faces who have the right potential and expertise to carry forward those agenda.
Okay. Sanjay Jha, I'll come to you at the end, but let me get in comments from both the R. Jagannathan and A.K. Bhattacharya. Jackie, let me start by asking you, how are you reading this entire exercise? Because, you know, after adding 19 and dropping 5, you know, you're still left with a pretty large council of ministers. Of course, they were close to the constitutional bar of 84, but after dropping 5, they have a little bit of headroom there. But you know, the inclusions seem to be playing out according to script. The surprise element perhaps there is Prakash Javadekkar's elevation with cabinet rank. The speculation was that perhaps somebody like Piyush Goyal would have been elevated. What to your mind would qualify as the highlights as far as this entire exercise is concerned?
Yeah, I see looking at it after listening to all of this for a while, I think there are three basic principles that have governed this. The big move is, of course, the Javadekar one, which means that Modi is broadly happy with the direction the Environment Ministry is taking. And also the feedback from industry has been that it is getting things moving, and we see things moving, and at the same time not too much going against the basic ideals of environmental protection. So I think he seems to have struck the right balance, and he has been elevated. The second message that's coming through in this is that there is a political narrative to it. That is, you need to have much more representation from areas which are underrepresented. Don't forget, a quarter of the BJP's MPs have come from UP, and the UP assembly elections are also there. So you needed to give greater representation there. Third thing, I think, is that he did not want to make changes at the top, even though some of the senior minister might have partially underperformed. So he wants to strengthen them from underneath by putting MOSs who might be able to help them with that job. So that's the second thing. The third thing, of course, is that he does not want to send the signal of major change, because it will mean that you have made mistakes in the earlier part. So the top deck has not been shuffled at all. And one might still see people like Goyal might get elevated, but since we don't have the full script, we will know. But it's possible that maybe, but he's in independent charge, so it's merely a change of status. It does not change his work and other things. So I think that is not a problem.
AKB, taking the theme forward from where Jaggi left off, the political implications of the political narrative, the fact that the top deck remains intact, and that is what we've been reporting, and several others have been reporting as well. Not wanting to send out a message that there could be questions that have been raised on, Subramaniam Swamy's open attacks and so on and so forth. So trying to leave any possibility of disruption at the top, he's left that out completely. But in terms of the talent deficit or the apparent talent deficit, do you believe that the 19 that have been included will be able to bridge some of that?
Well, it's a difficult call to take, because we still don't know what ministries they will get. But from whatever announcements that have been made in terms of the ministers that are going to have been dropped, and the 19 new faces that are going to be inducted, you clearly get three clear messages. Number one, it seems to me that the Prime Minister is fairly happy with his economic team. He has not disturbed any one of the key economic ministers, either at the MOS level or at the cabinet level. So, and if you look at the ministries that have been dropped, they're all from HRD, water resources, tribal affairs, agriculture, Panchayati Raj. So he is really focused on what I would call the agenda for Bharat. And these are the ministries where he has asked the MOSs to be withdrawn. Number one message that I would get is that he is by and large happy with his economic team, and he wants that economic team to continue the job that it has been doing. And Prakash Javadekar, who is a semi-economic minister in my view, because he does have an interface with industry, has been rewarded, although we still don't know what is the cabinet portfolio he gets. Does he retain the cabinet portfolio of environment and forest, or that gets changed? Number two is that the average age of the Council of Ministers actually doesn't change, actually gets worse. It gets older, because most of them are in their 60s, 65, and it seems to me that there is the talent deficit that you talked about, and there aren't too many young faces who can be represented. I mean, there aren't too many Smriti Iranis, so to say, to be represented in the government. So, which is why Mr. Modi has relied on guys who are 65, 63, 69. Mr. Ahluwalia is 69. So, that's the second point. The third point is that he is probably not enforcing his age criterion very strictly, because there have been a couple of ministers who are touching that that age ceiling, but they have not been touched. Finally, I would say that the representation of the new ministers in terms of their membership of which house they come from shows that out of those 19 new guys, new people, 13 are from Lok Sabha and 6 are from Rajya Sabha. So I think the balance of the Council of Ministers is increasingly getting equally divided between the upper house members and the lower house members. When he began his tenure, I think the preference was more for Lok Sabha members, and now you see at least half of the new inductees are from the Rajya Sabha.
Well, that's a very important point that you make, AKB, and perhaps a strategic choice as well on the part of the Prime Minister, given the trouble that they've been facing in the upper house. But Sanjay Jha, I'm coming to you last because I perhaps anticipate what you're going to say about this entire exercise. So let me now let you have your say. What do you make of the cabinet expansion or reshuffle exercise? Call it what you like.
Well, Shereen, I think you anticipate me because you anticipate exactly what the larger public perceptions are. I think the truth is that everybody knows that this government is run by the PMO, which has been an unwieldy and large-sized entity. And now you have a jumbo-sized cabinet. So, you have another classic U-turn by the Prime Minister. Now you have a minimum governance and a maximum government model. Now this is for everyone to see, it cannot even be disputed. The truth is, let's look at the example of Prakash Javadekar. If he is being elevated to a cabinet status, I think it's a message to the larger sections of India that are actually paying the price on the perils of rampant growth, which is not factoring for the inconvenience it is caused to the scheduled tribe, to the Adivasis and those who live in green and tribal belts. I mean, end of day, the Congress party, if you might have read it today, that we are taking the dilution of the forest rights as an issue to fight for those who don't get enough adequate representation in the larger public discourse. And therefore, in a great number of ways, I think that is a manifestation of the priorities of this government. On the part of, representation, all I can tell you is that, this is political expediency. I think, you don't have to be a seasoned follower of politics to see that. I agree that Uttar Pradesh matters for every political party. But the truth is that beyond representation, end of day, the BJP has been going to town talking about Kairana and Dadri every other day, despite the fact that those facts have been disputed. So there is, end of day, no matter how much we talk of development and so on and so forth, the subterranean agenda is to actually still play the electoral game on polarizing society. And that, I think, is a real downside. This is basically a status quo, a static kind of a reshuffle. Other than grabbing a headline for a day, I think it's going to make no material difference to the lives of the common men in India.
All right, Zafar Islam, I'm going to get you to comment and react to what we've just heard there from the Congress spokesperson, Sanjay Jha. And perhaps there is some truth, at least as far as the point that Sanjay Jha makes about this being a U-turn, perhaps, or being seen as a U-turn on the government's promise of minimum government and maximum governance. Because this is not any different from the UPA-sized government, sir. How do you respond, A, to that perspective? And secondly, also on the age criteria, which was a very important element that A.K. Bhattacharya spoke about, is there now, once again, is the government giving up on the age criteria that it had set out for itself? And also the strategic choice of adding more members from the Rajya Sabha into the Council of Ministers because you anticipate trouble in the Rajya Sabha, and you've already seen that stall your program over the past 2 years. Is this a deliberate strategic choice?
Shereen, as you had rightly anticipated what Sanjay Jha would be speaking, it's a standard rhetoric of all the Congress spokesperson, because they have nothing to speak except to say all nasty thing about our government. But the whole of India knows that how the government is performing, and the performance is being appreciated by not only in India, but all the multilateral institutions who actually see the growth and the performance of the government. They are giving thumbs up to our government time and again, be it World Bank, be it IMF, or be it any other multilateral institution, because they are the one who actually analyze, and not like a Congress spokesperson who are ignorant about the statistics and actual performance, and that is still talking about
let's not make this about the Congress Party versus the BJP, sir.
Now coming back to the second point, which you said about the age criteria and the new phase. Age criteria, see, there is no stated objective about the government of this age criteria of 75 or lower than 75 or above this. The priority of our government, of Honorable Prime Minister, is somebody who can deliver. He should be competent, and he should be able to deliver, and he should be able to deliver the government agenda which the Honorable Prime Minister has time and again stated through a budget or through his speeches. So that is something which he evaluates performance of those individuals, be it 75 and above or lower, but it's something which the person is delivering, and that's Prime Minister's primary objective. So age is not a criteria, not a stated objective of the government. Third question which you asked about the
Rajya Sabha representation.
Yeah, so Rajya Sabha representation, see, as I said earlier, that the focus and the objective of our government and the Honorable Prime Minister is somebody who can deliver. It's irrespective whether he represents the Rajya Sabha or he comes from the Lok Sabha, because Lok Sabha member already has a lot of responsibilities to nurture their own constituency and look after their own constituency, and that's why the Prime Minister has repeatedly asked all the Lok Sabha members to go back and work for the constituency and rather sitting in Delhi. So the objective is defined. And that's why the people who have been roped in the Rajya Sabha is primarily with the objective. They are the experts, so they have the expertise, they have the knowledge, domain knowledge, and they should be roped in the cabinet for their expertise, and the benefit will go to every single individual of the country. So that's the primary focus of the government, and that's based on that. The Honorable Prime Minister is laying the track, and for the ministers to run the train.